A blizzard swallowed the outskirts of Denver the night everything changed. An empty mountain road, a pickup slowing to a halt. Noah Bennett, a man who tried to leave his past behind, stepped out when the faint glow of police lights flickered through the snow. He froze. Below the ridge, a patrol car lay overturned, its roof crushed into the drifts. Officer Olivia Brooks, barely conscious, struggled to breathe as blood soaked through her torn winter uniform. Her voice was a whisper breaking in the wind. "They rammed me off the road. They'll come back." Noah didn't hesitate. The former Navy SEAL inside him woke like an old instinct. He tore off his coat, shattered the remaining glass, cut the seatbelt, and pressed hard against the wound as her eyes dimmed. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "I've seen worse. You're not dying tonight." 1 hour later, in the hospital, the police captain stared at the flawless battlefield, stitching on Olivia's side. "Who did this?" he whispered. "That's military precision. If this story moves you, share it so others can hear it too. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of courage, faith, and unexpected heroes. The snowfall over Denver. The winter wind swept across the outskirts of Denver with a sharp, needling cold. Noah Bennett drove slowly through the storm, his old pickup truck groaning each time the tires rolled over patches of hardened ice. At 40, he carried the weight of years spent in the Navy SEALs, the way others carried a heavy coat. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a frame that spoke of discipline more than vanity. His hair, once ink black, now showed faint lines of gray near the temples. A neatly trimmed beard framed a jaw built from years of clenched endurance. His eyes, deep brown with a quiet glow, shifted between calm warmth and blade-sharp focus depending on what the world demanded of him. Tonight they carried the fatigue of a man who had worked a long security shift and still had miles to travel before home. And underneath that fatigue lived something else, a hum of watchfulness, a reflex that war had carved into bone. Beside him sat Ranger, a 5-year-old German shepherd with a powerful build and the poised alertness of a trained service dog. His fur was a blend of deep black and rich tan, thick enough to resist most winter days, but still dusted now, with flakes of snow each time the truck door opened. His amber-brown eyes moved constantly, surveying the world with a calm, steady intelligence. On his harness, the stitched words, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet," identified a history of disciplined work and the quiet loyalty that had formed between him and Noah during rehabilitation years earlier. Ranger was more than a companion. He was the last witness to the man Noah had once been and the bridge to the man he was still trying to become. The road twisted along a ridge, nearly empty, the storm quieting the city and the mountains alike. Snow thickened on the windshield until Noah brushed it away with a gloved hand and narrowed his eyes. The headlights caught something unnatural ahead. Long brake marks, fresh, sharp, carved into the snow like a final signature. Before he consciously decided anything, Noah eased off the gas. Ranger lifted his head, ears pricking forward. Something in the dog mirrored the tension tightening across Noah's shoulders. A faint flashing glow appeared at the bottom of the hill. Red, blue, flickering. Noah's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He slowed to a crawl, scanning for hazards, scanning for patterns. It was instinct, muscle memory, the ghost of training that never truly left. He pulled onto the shoulder and killed the engine. The sudden quiet pressed in around him, broken only by the roar of the wind sweeping across the icy ridge. Snowflakes spiraled in chaotic patterns, catching the lights below and scattering them like fractured glass. "Stay," Noah murmured, though Ranger had already stiffened, eyes locked downhill. Noah stepped out. The cold slammed into him with a force that felt almost personal, as though the storm itself wanted to test the resolve of whoever dared to disturb its domain. He trudged to the edge of the slope, and there, wedged violently into a bank of snow, lay a Denver police cruiser, overturned on its roof. Smoke curled from the hood in thin, exhausted ribbons. The radio crackled faintly, a fractured voice breaking through the static before disappearing again. The windshield was shattered inward, the metal frame bent like a crushed tin can. Inside, a woman was trapped. Officer Olivia Brooks had the look of someone who lived with purpose even in quiet moments. She was in her late 20s, with a slim athletic build and hair the color of dark chestnut, pulled into a bun that had partly loosened in the crash. Her skin, pale under the harsh blue strobes, trembled with shock. Blood soaked the left side of her uniform, where the ballistic vest had torn, and a river of red traced down her ribs and pooled beneath her. Her breathing was shallow, a startled, uneven rhythm. Her lips parted in an attempt to speak, but the frozen air swallowed her words. Noah's mind sharpened instantly. He scanned the angle of the car, the slope, the weight distribution, the risk of a second slide. In his head, he tracked everything the way he once had on missions overseas, where a misstep meant more than a bruise. Time was narrowing around her. He felt the familiar tug of duty, the one he had tried for years to silence. The one that insisted a life in danger was a call to action, whether he chose the call or not. A gust of wind howled down the ridge. Snow scattered violently across the wreck, coating Olivia's pale cheek. She flinched at the cold, or perhaps at the dawning knowledge that she was alone. Noah's jaw flexed as he stepped back from the edge. Ranger stood beside the truck now, body poised, waiting for Noah's command. The dog let out a single low bark, not loud or frantic but deep, steady, and warning. Noah stared down into the ravine at the bleeding officer who had minutes, maybe less, before the cold stole her consciousness completely. The storm pressed in. The night grew quieter. And Ranger barked again, softer this time. The chapter closes here, with the wind swirling through the darkness, the dog's voice echoing over the snow, and the unanswered question lingering in the freezing air. Would Noah reach her in time? The past that never let go. The wind lashed against the ridge as Noah Bennett braced himself on the icy slope, the memory of old battlefields rising like ghosts behind his eyes. The storm seemed to whisper through the pines, stirring fragments of nights he had tried so hard to forget. He could still feel the heat of explosions in foreign mountains, the trembling weight of wounded teammates in his arms, the metallic scent of blood drifting into the desert wind, and always the same promise ringing in his ears: never leave anyone behind. His left knee throbbed with each step down the slope. Years ago, a roadside explosive had cost him a friend he had loved like a brother. It had thrown Noah across a field of sand and broken rock, tearing muscle and bone. For months afterward, he carried both the physical ache and the silent guilt of surviving when someone better had not. Tonight, that ache lit up in sharp pulses, but he ignored it. Someone needed him again. Ranger waited above, his muscular frame outlined in the sweeping snow. The dog's chestnut and black fur bristled against the wind, but he did not move. Ranger understood discipline the way most people understood language. His stillness was the stillness of a soldier awaiting a command. Noah reached the shattered cruiser window. The glass around Olivia Brooks glittered like frostbitten crystals. At this distance, he could see her more clearly. Her skin, usually a warm light olive tone, had turned pale beneath the blood loss and cold. Her lips trembled with each uneven breath. Snowflakes melted against her forehead before sliding down her temple. "Officer, can you hear me?" Noah called, his voice steady despite the tension pulling at his shoulders. "Keep your eyes open. Talk to me." Her eyelids fluttered. A faint groan escaped her, shaped by pain but anchored in determination. "They ran me off the road," she whispered. Her voice was thin but carried the grit of someone who refused to go quietly. "I was following. Suspects. Black SUV. Drug runners. I called for backup. No one came." Noah cataloged every word. A black SUV. Intentional impact. Organized movement. The kind of men who didn't hesitate to finish what they started. He leaned closer, assessing the angle of her body. Olivia was pinned by the twisted steering column. Her height, around 5'7", gave her a longer reach, but her frame, lean and athletic, now worked against her as the metal held her tightly in place. Her breath hitched whenever she inhaled too deeply, suggesting at least one fractured rib. The deep wound along her left side bled steadily. "We're getting you out," Noah said quietly. She blinked up at him, unfocused but searching. Who are you?" "Someone who's done this before." For a moment, something softened in her gaze, a flicker of trust born not from knowledge, but from instinct. Narrowing his stance on the slippery ground, Noah pulled a folding rescue knife from his coat, a simple tool, but sharpened with the precision of habit. He cut through the frayed seatbelt while bracing her shoulder with his other hand to prevent sudden movement. The cruiser creaked ominously, shifting under its weight. Snow gave way beneath one of the rear tires. The car inched downward. Noah froze, calculated, adjusted. The slope would not forgive him if he moved wrong. "Stay with me, Olivia," he murmured, wanting to anchor her mind even as he fought to free her body. "Tell me something. Anything." She swallowed, breath trembling. "My partner, he told me I was stubborn. Said I was going to get myself killed one day. You're not dying tonight. You sound sure. Because I've seen worse. Because I refuse to let another person die on my watch. Because I couldn't save Michael, and I still hear him in my sleep. Noah pushed the thought away. He needed clarity, not ghosts. With a final snap, the seatbelt gave way. Olivia sagged forward, her weight collapsing into his arms. She cried out at the movement, sharp, brief, fierce, but she did not pass out. That's good, Noah said. Pain means you're still fighting. He repositioned her carefully, shifting her into an angle that allowed her lungs to expand more freely. The blood at her side soaked through his gloves, warm even in the freezing air. Above them, Ranger let out a low sound. Doane, not quite a bark, not quite a whine. A communication born from years of partnership. A warning that the situation was escalating. The storm thickened, swirling in frantic spirals that cut visibility down to almost nothing. Noah stole a glance up the ridge. The dog stood with tense precision, poised to move the moment Noah called. He needed both hands to lift Olivia, and his knees' pain reminded him of limits he knew too well. But he also knew limit was just another word for something he hadn't defied yet. He adjusted his footing. We're going up that hill, he told her. In this? Olivia breathed, her voice faint. In worse before, he murmured. He looked once more to Ranger, who gave a single deep bark, the kind that resonated in the chest more than the ears. Decision made. Noah tightened his grip, braced himself against the storm, and prepared to haul her out of the wreckage and up the treacherous slope. The chapter ends here, on the edge of danger, on the edge of hope, uncertain whether his strength, his knee, and the storm itself would allow him to carry her to safety. The fight against time and darkness. The cruiser groaned under its own weight as Noah Bennett shifted his stance, the metal frame trembling like a wounded animal, ready to slip deeper into the ravine. Snow whirled through the broken windows, settling on Olivia Brooks's uniform and melting instantly against the warm blood flowing from her side. Noah forced his breath steady. Panic had no place here. Not now. Not ever. He angled his flashlight between his teeth, freeing both hands as he examined the area around her ribs. The jagged metal had torn through fabric and vest alike. The bleeding was slow but persistent, a pulse of red soaking into the layers beneath her. It's going to hurt, he warned. Olivia's eyelids twitched. She was still conscious, though her pupils struggled to focus on him. In better circumstances, she might have been considered striking. Her features were refined, her cheekbones angled, and her dark chestnut hair framed her face with a gentle softness. But now that same softness made her look unbearably vulnerable. Do it, she whispered, her voice raw. Noah slipped the folding knife along a strip of cloth caught near the torn metal, cutting away the obstruction. Each motion made the cruiser shift ever so slightly, the groan of stressed steel echoing through the darkness. Outside, the wind rose in a long, sorrowful howl. He used his shoulder to brace the seat, angling it away from her side. Then he smashed the remaining shards of glass with the blunt end of the knife, widening the exit path. Olivia winced at the sound, her hand instinctively tightening around his sleeve. Talk to me, Noah said firmly. Don't drift out. She swallowed hard. The SUV, they were moving fentanyl. Same group we've been tracking for weeks. My sergeant told me to back off. Said it wasn't worth dying over. Her breath hitched again. Noah recognized the tone. It was the voice of someone who refused to walk away from duty even when ordered to. How many in the car? He asked. 3, maybe 4. A faint grimace passed across her face. They knew I was following. They hit me fast. He didn't respond. Years of deployments had taught him when to push and when not to. For now, he needed her conscious, not interrogated. From inside his coat, Noah pulled a small, worn medical kit. The zipper stuck for a moment. Frost had started to creep into the teeth. When it finally opened, he laid out the contents. Sterile gauze, a pressure bandage, an old tourniquet, tools he had carried out of habit, long after most men would have let them go. He pressed a folded layer of gauze to her wound. Olivia gasped. Not a scream this time, but something clipped, controlled, a sign of her own training, her own pride. Stay with me, Noah murmured. Ranger barked once from above, a deep resonant call that cut through the storm. The dog's silhouette passed across the beam of the truck headlights. Pacing, ready. We're going up that hill, Noah said. He secured the bandage tight, creating a seal that slowed the bleeding enough for transit. Then he maneuvered her body toward the shattered window. Olivia gritted her teeth, a sheen of sweat mixing with melting snow on her forehead. "You've done this before," she said weakly. "Too many times," Noah replied, his voice quieter now. "Hold on to me." He eased her through the opening, supporting her weight as best he could, while his injured knee flared with familiar pain. A sharp reminder of his limitations, but he ignored it. He always had. Once outside, the cold slammed into them, cruel and consuming. He lowered Olivia onto a wool blanket he had brought from the truck, then lifted his head and gave a short command. Ranger responded instantly. The 5-year-old shepherd charged down the safe slope Noah had mentally mapped earlier. The dog's powerful legs dug into the snow with practiced precision, moving wide to avoid destabilizing the edge. Noah tied a length of climbing cord to the harness on Ranger's back. They had done this maneuver countless times in training, though never under such desperate conditions. Ranger braced his weight, leaning forward. "Good," Noah whispered. "Steady." He placed both hands behind Olivia's shoulders and began pushing upward. Every inch was a battle, against ice, against gravity, against the fire burning down his leg. Olivia clenched the sides of the blanket, her breaths coming out as shaky clouds. Halfway up the slope, a crack echoed behind them. Noah turned his head in time to see the cruiser shift violently. Sparks burst from the exposed wires near the engine. A second later, a hollow pop, then a bloom of orange and white light. The explosion tore through the ravine, illuminating the snow in a violent flash. Heat swept upward, licking at Noah's back as he hunched over Olivia to shield her. Metal fragments hissed as they struck the ground around them. Ranger barked sharply, pulling harder, urging them forward. Noah gritted his teeth and pushed again, and again. Muscles burned, breath faltered, but step by agonizing step they climbed. Finally, the slope leveled. Noah collapsed to his knees beside Olivia, chest heaving, hands trembling from effort and cold. Ranger stood close, his thick fur puffed against the icy wind, positioning himself to block as much of it as possible from Olivia's body. Noah reached for his phone. The signal bars flickered. Then, 1 bar, 2. He dialed 911, giving location markers, injury details, structural risks of the crash site. His voice was clipped but unwavering, a soldier's report. When he ended the call, the storm seemed quieter somehow, not gentler, but listening. Ranger settled beside Olivia, lying in a protective arc that shielded her from the wind. Noah draped his own coat over her, watching her chest rise and fall in shallow but steady breaths. Far off, through the roar of winter, faint sirens began to form a thin, distant promise. They waited, 3 figures on an empty mountain road, surrounded by snow, firelight fading behind them, and the fragile hope that help would reach them before the darkness closed in. Truth, suspicion, and the call back to the front line. By dawn, the storm had thinned into gentle flurries that drifted over Denver General Hospital like a fragile white veil. Inside the emergency wing, fluorescent lights hummed softly as a team of trauma physicians surrounded Olivia Brooks's gurney. Their hands paused when they saw the dressing on her wound, layered, precise, sealed with the kind of pressure application only combat medics were taught to execute under fire. Dr. Sandra Morales, a compact woman in her late 40s, with salt and pepper curls and warm brown skin, leaned in closer. Her expression was one of disbelief, mixed with a professional admiration that rarely found its way into her exhausted features. Years in emergency medicine had etched faint lines around her eyes, the kind that deepened when she encountered something remarkable. Whoever did this, she murmured, knew exactly what they were doing. A younger nurse, tall and lanky with freckles splashed across her nose, looked up from adjusting Olivia's IV. "So, the rumors are true? The mystery man with the dog?" Dr. Morales only nodded, her gaze drifting to the hallway where the story had already begun to spread. The staff whispered about a stranger who had pulled a bleeding officer from a ravine during a blizzard, tended to her wounds, and disappeared before anyone could thank him. By mid-morning, those whispers had reached the Denver Police Department. Noah Bennett arrived at the station reluctantly, guided by duty more than desire. He wore the same navy winter coat from the night before, though now thawed snow clung to its hem. Ranger walked beside him, alert but calm, his tan and black coat brushed clean by Noah's steady hands. Inside the precinct lobby, officers paused to glance at them, first at Noah's imposing build and quietly commanding presence, then at the disciplined German shepherd at his side. Ranger met their looks without fear, his amber eyes steady and intelligent. A receptionist directed Noah down a hallway lined with case files and framed commendations. At the end waited Captain Daniel Harris. Harris was a man carved from experience. In his early 50s, taller than most, he had a rectangular jaw dusted with silver stubble and deep-set gray eyes that missed very little. His shoulders were broad, but his posture carried fatigue built over decades of bearing responsibility for others. A faint scar traced the left side of his cheek, a reminder of a hostage rescue gone wrong in his 30s, one that had shaped his cautious but fair leadership ever since. He gestured toward a chair across from his desk. "Mr. Bennett, thank you for coming." "It didn't sound like a request," Noah replied, though there was no hostility in his tone, only guarded patience. Ranger sat beside him, posture straight, ears forward. Harris studied the former SEAL in silence for a moment. He took in the weather-worn coat, the steady gaze, the calm breathing. Finally, he opened a folder lying atop his desk. "You know," the captain said, tapping the pages, "when someone performs battlefield-grade trauma care in a blizzard, on a ravine, with no equipment besides what he carries in his coat, it gets our attention." Noah's jaw tensed. "I did what anyone should." Harris's brow lifted. "No, you did what someone highly trained would, and those are rare." He turned the folder toward Noah. Several sections were blacked out with thick ink. Military record, deployment history, commendations, and one notation referencing a major injury sustained overseas. Noah said nothing. He'd learned long ago that silence was its own defense. Harris closed the folder gently. "A man with your experience doesn't end up working night security shifts unless he's running from something, or trying to protect something." Ranger gave a soft rumble in his throat, protective but not aggressive. Noah rested a hand on the dog's neck, grounding them both. Before Harris could continue, a knock sounded at the door. A young officer stepped inside, breathless. "Captain, the hospital just called. There was an incident in Officer Brooks's room." Noah rose instantly. Harris stood as well. "Explain." "A man disguised as maintenance staff tried to enter her room. Ranger alerted before he got close. Bennett subdued him." The captain's eyes snapped to Noah. "You were there?" "Visiting," Noah replied. "Ranger picked up something off about him. He moved wrong." The officer added, "Security found a concealed blade on the suspect." Harris exhaled slowly, tension settling into his shoulders. He dismissed the officer with a nod, then faced Noah fully. "This wasn't random," the captain said. "Someone wants Brooks gone, and anyone protecting her." Noah didn't flinch, but a familiar heaviness stirred beneath his ribs, the weight of inevitability. Harris stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I want you working with us, not as an officer, as a tactical consultant. You know battlefield medicine. You know how to read danger, and you clearly know how to act under pressure." Noah looked away, jaw tightening. The old crossroads returned, cutting through him like winter wind. He had spent years rebuilding peace in the quiet corners of his life. Quiet shifts, quiet routines, quiet nights with Ranger lying beside him. Stepping back into a war, even one fought in city streets instead of foreign deserts, risked shattering all of that. Across the room, Ranger watched him expectantly, his ears tilting forward, not commanding, but trusting. The door opened again. Olivia Brooks appeared, leaning weakly against the frame. Her face was pale but determined, her dark hair pulled back in a loose braid. A nurse escorted her, a petite woman with red hair and a worried expression. But Olivia waved her off. She looked directly at Noah. "You saved my life," she said softly. "I'm asking you, don't stop now." Her eyes, steady, resolute, unbroken, held his. Noah breathed in, then out. He had known this choice would come. He had just hoped it wouldn't come so soon. The battle in the blizzard and a new beginning. The snowstorm that settled over Denver did not roar. It smothered. Thick curtains of white drifted across the training grounds behind the precinct, swallowing the world in steady, freezing silence. It was in that silence that Noah Bennett rebuilt a force. For weeks, the officers of the Denver Police Department filed into the makeshift training hall, a wide industrial warehouse converted into a classroom of grit and discipline. Inside, the air echoed with the firm cadence of boots, the metallic clack of tourniquets, and Noah's calm, unwavering voice. His posture was precise but never rigid. He carried authority without needing to declare it. "Pressure here, not here," he instructed, guiding a young officer's hands with patient care. The officer, A broad-shouldered man named Reed Whitmore, with sandy blonde hair and a square, honest face, nodded earnestly. He had the earnest eyes of someone who wanted very much to be brave, and the tremor of someone who feared he never would be. Noah recognized that combination. He had once worn it himself. "Try it again," Noah said. Reed exhaled and repeated the technique, this time steadier. Ranger padded by, pausing to observe the exercise. The 5-year-old shepherd had become the unofficial morale anchor of the department. Some days he performed controlled protection demonstrations. Other days he lay sprawled beside exhausted officers, letting their hands rest on his warm fur, as if absorbing their stress into himself. Olivia Brooks attended whenever her recovery allowed. Her dark chestnut hair was tied back, though a faint scar along her left side peeked through her shirt when she moved. The physical damage had slowed her only slightly. Her spirit seemed sharper than before, more present, more grounded. She caught Noah's eye across the room. He looked away quickly, perhaps too quickly. Even Captain Harris visited the sessions, his tall frame filling the doorway. He watched with the detached scrutiny of a commander who had seen too many funerals and hoped he would never attend one more. The scar on his cheek seemed deeper in winter light, the legacy of a moment that taught him what hesitation truly cost. One evening, he approached Noah after a session. "You're doing good work here," Harris said, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "They listen to you." Noah gave a half smile. "I'm not here to lead them, just to help them survive." "Same thing," Harris replied, and left it at that. The raid came 3 weeks later, announced not by trumpets or alarms, but by the quiet thud of snowfall against the command vehicle in the dead of night. A warehouse on the outskirts of Denver, once a storage facility for farm equipment, had been repurposed by the cartel as a distribution hub. The blizzard deepened. Visibility shrank to mere feet. The world outside became a blur of ghostly shapes. Inside the command van, screens flickered as Noah studied blueprints, listening to radio static between breaths. His left knee ached sharply, a reminder of the explosion that had nearly killed him years ago. But he pushed the pain aside, tracing exits and choke points with steady fingers. "Team 3 should avoid the west stairwell," he said. "If I were them, that's where I'd plant a secondary device." Captain Harris nodded. Adjusting formation, Ranger stood near the door, equipped with a small tactical harness, but no aggression. His ears flicked with each radio transmission, reading the hidden tension no human voice could mask. "Team 1 moving," came a voice through the comms. A pause, then chaos. Gunfire crackled through the storm. Shouts, boots pounding against concrete. Olivia's voice broke through the noise, controlled but strained. "We've got movement. Suspect is pulling me." Her words cut off. Noah's breath stopped. He gripped the edge of the console until the metal bit into his palm. A helmet camera feed snapped into focus, showing Olivia being dragged toward a makeshift detonator held by a tall man with harsh features. His eyes were sunken, his hair dark and greasy, his face drawn into fierce desperation. Even in grainy footage, the cruelty was clear. He was Marcus Vega, the cartel lieutenant known for using fear the way most men used weapons. He had thick arms, tattoos winding around both forearms, and a broken nose set crooked from a fight long ago. A man shaped by violence and unrepentant for it. He pressed the switch toward the wall. "Come any closer and we all go," he shouted. Officers froze. The camera jittered as Olivia tried to hold her ground, her breath fogging in the cold. Noah leaned toward the monitor. "Olivia," he said into the radio, his voice low but firm. "Look at him. Not the detonator. His eyes." Her head tilted slightly, listening. "He's scared," Noah continued, "which means he's looking for control. Keep his attention. Don't step back." Through the comms, Ranger was given a silent gesture, Harris's hand signal, not spoken words. The dog slipped out the van door, vanishing into the storm. On screen, Vega tightened his grip. Frost clung to his beard. Olivia kept her gaze fixed on him, pulse visibly trembling at her throat. Then a movement, small, almost invisible. A blur of black and tan streaked across the edge of the camera. Ranger lunged, his jaws clamped down on Vega's wrist, twisting it sharply away from the detonator. The man screamed. A single disciplined gunshot rang out from one of the officers. Clean, controlled, precise. Vega collapsed. The detonator fell harmlessly onto the concrete. "Clear!" voices shouted. "Clear!" One by one, relief replaced terror. Noah let out a breath he had not realized he had been holding. 2 days later, An intimate ceremony was held inside the precinct. No medals, no podium, just a wooden wall engraved with names and a small plaque reserved for acts of service without expectation of reward. Harris pinned a photograph of Noah and Ranger beside that plaque. "So, we don't forget," he said. Noah stood awkwardly at the back. Recognition had never fit him well. Ranger sat by his leg, nudging his hand as if to remind him that humility was part of who he was now, and always would be. In the weeks that followed, Noah opened a first response training class for civilians in a quiet church hall. The heater hummed, the chalkboard squeaked, and Ranger lay at the front of the room, tail flicking whenever a student approached. Olivia visited often, sometimes in uniform, sometimes in jeans and a sweater, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. Ranger treated her as part of his circle now, resting his head on her knee when she sat beside him. One cold evening, after class ended, Noah drove them both home. Olivia sat in the passenger seat, Ranger curled between them, his warm weight grounding the moment. Denver shimmered outside the windshield. Cold, yes, but alive. Noah felt something shift inside him, not a return to his old life, a transformation. He wasn't fighting in shadows anymore. He was helping others walk in the light, and somewhere deep within, the old oath echoed, not sharp, not painful, but steady. Never leave anyone behind. Not anymore, not ever. In the end, Noah's story was never just about courage or battlefield skill. It was about the quiet miracles that slip into ordinary days. A stranger on a winter road who stops when no one else is watching. A wounded officer who refuses to give up. A loyal dog whose instinct becomes protection. Some people call it fate, some call it luck. But many believe it is the gentle hand of God, guiding the right souls to the right place at the right moment. A reminder that even in the coldest storms, He sends someone to light the way. And maybe that is the lesson for all of us, that every day holds a chance to save someone's life, lift someone's spirit, or simply stand beside them when the world grows dark. Small acts, quiet faith. That is how miracles begin. If this story touched your heart, share it so others may feel the same hope. Leave a comment about the moments in your life when you felt protected or guided. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so these stories of faith and courage can continue finding their way to the people who need them most. May God bless you, guard your steps, and watch over every storm you walk through. And may He always send someone just in time when the road grows cold.